Welcome back. Today's video is going to be a super fun one. I think you're going to like it. Ryan and I live a pretty unique lifestyle up here in the North Woods of Minnesota, being homesteaders and living a self-sufficient lifestyle. And so I thought now would be a great time to put together a question and answer so I can answer all of your burning questions. I get asked questions all the time about Ryan. Well, does he still work? Do I work? How did we get here? Do we have kids? Do we plan on having kids? You know, how can people get into homesteading? How did we get into homesteading? So many awesome questions. So I polled you guys on YouTube. I also took some questions on Instagram and I made a whole list of questions, and there were some good ones. You guys really thought about some great topics that I can't wait to answer and chat about with you guys. So now I'm gonna go grab Ryan and let's get started. Question number one is, how did you get interested in homesteading and did you grow up doing it? Should we start at the very beginning? So I didn't grow up homesteading, that's for sure. I grew up in just your typical suburban home. We didn't have a garden. We didn't do food preservations. So I'm pretty much 100% self-taught. My mom taught me how to cook. She was great at cooking from scratch, but everything else I've learned along the way.
Yeah, I grew up in rural Nebraska on an acreage, and my mom did have gardens growing up. It was a summer garden. We would eat out of it, and it was really nice. I don't think it was something I really had aspirations to. I was just used to having a lot of space and being away from people.
For sure, but you guys never had livestock or anything like that, right?
We leased out our pasture, so we ran cattle on there.
Okay.
Didn't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But you didn't manage it.
No, we didn't manage them.
You just provided the land.
Yep.
And then the second part of the question, so how did you get interested in homesteading? So for me, I've always enjoyed nature, and I had friends that grew up on an acreage, and I was always so jealous of them when I'd go visit them.
For me, it stems from the whole idea of being self-sufficient. Not from a prepping standpoint, like, oh, we need to be on our own. It's just, I don't like the idea of something happening somewhere and, you know, we're dependent on somebody else, I guess, would be the way to say it.
Yeah, and I think that's an important piece. And for me, it's more just, I'm such an independent person. I love just doing it on my own. So for me, it's more just a passion. I just really enjoy doing it. And then it just happens to be a nice safety net as well.
And I enjoy the work. I don't like sitting around not doing anything. And it's, you know, there's a lot of things you can do as hobbies, and to have a hobby be producing and building something for your future is always fun.
And as far as how we got started, I would say we kind of started with urban homesteading at our first home. We were in this tiny little city lot in Kansas City, but I started a garden there and we had some fruit trees and
I built a big shop.
You did. It was inappropriate for that lot size.
It took up the rest of the yard.
But yeah, and then once we outgrew that, we were finally ready to move up to a homestead. So we found our 5-acre homestead in 2013. And we were there for about 10 years. And throughout that time, it was just kind of a gradual, every year I tried to add on a new skill. So we did bees for a while. That eventually failed.
Right.
We got chickens pretty early on after we moved into that homestead. We, of course, did have done gardening all the way through.
I think when we bought that place, though, it was more the idea of having some space and look at the things you can do with space. You know, of course it was, we're going to have a garden, but it was a thing that kind of grew as we were there. It was, you know, because I remember when we first planted the garden, and I think I was pushing for, hey, it'd be really cool if you plant enough food to be able to can and put some away. And your response was, I just want to plant some stuff that we can eat. And I mean, it was mostly, you were still figuring a lot of things out, I think.
Yeah, it's overwhelming to just jump into full production mode and be able to grow everything for the year. And I was still working full time at the hospital and commuting 2 hours a day, so time was limited too. And so
I was traveling internationally a lot at that time.
Yeah, so I was kind of solo homesteading. So if you're feeling, you know, the crunch, and I get it, I've been there too. So it's been a slow process. I would say I didn't really start fully embracing like full-on food preservation until the last few years, really.
Yeah, I'd say that's true. I think the way it happened was the garden just kept getting bigger. You know, once you have a garden established, it's easier just to plant more of the same thing. So then you end up with extras, and it's like, well, what do we do with this? We got to figure out how to save them. So then you figure out how to do a little bit of canning, and then you're like, you know, I understand how to do this little bit of canning. So let's plan a little bit more and actually do some more canning so that we can use it throughout the winter. And then you have some success. That food kept throughout most of the winter, and you ate your butternut squash until January.
And I was like, oh, this is fun. Let's do a little bit more of that. So it's definitely been a gradual thing.
Right.
Because I think I'm in 16 years into gardening now, and I feel like I'm finally really getting into the swing of it.
It's because your garden's doing awesome this year.
Yeah, this year's been a good year.
It's encouraging. I think you're good at it.
All right, next question. How long have you been working on this dream? I mean, honestly, since I was a kid, I guess. That's how long I've been dreaming of just living on an acreage and in the country. But truly, a self-sufficiency dream, I guess. How long I would say you were into it actually before I was.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the idea of having some stuff put away, not full-on self-sufficiency, but just having some stuff put away so that you're less tied to the ups and downs of how things are going in the world. That was probably all the way back when you had your first garden back in Kansas City, I'd say. But it's really been, I don't know, the last 5-6 years where about the time we realized we were outgrowing our 5-acre homestead because we wanted to produce so much.
Definitely. And especially with the world events in the last few years too, it's kind of like, all right.
Yeah, we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure.
We're not crazy.
No, unfortunately. All right, next question. Where are you located and how much land do you have?
Yeah, we're in central Nevada. You can find us there if you look for us.
Yeah. So we won't give away our exact location, but we'll say that we're in the North Woods of Minnesota. We're kind of in the Duluth area, and we have 240 acres.
Did you have to look that up on the sheet of paper?
No, I was just trying to remember what the second part of the question was. I was like, I knew there was a second part to it.
Yeah, we have 240 acres right now, several parcels. We bought it in steps. So a big motivation for having as much land as we bought is you can only control the land around yours so much. So at our last homestead, when we bought it, it was pretty quiet. It was on a gravel road, and there was a bunch of empty lots around us, so it felt much more remote than it was, even though we're only on 5 acres. And then, throughout time, like it happens, they paved the road, other lots sold, more houses built. Subdivided out properties, and all of a sudden, we felt like we were back on a city lot, essentially. So the motivation here was you buy enough land, you put yourself in the middle of it, and no one can get close to you.
Perfect.
Now, we're not completely antisocial, but we do, we want to be remote, we want our space, and the only way to really guarantee that is to create your own buffer.
And then the other piece of it too is we knew that we really wanted to level up our self-sufficiency in terms of hunting. So being able to have more land really opened up those doors for us. Because on the 5 acres, while people have technically hunted back there where we used to be, it was tight, and I would feel nervous shooting around there. So here we can definitely do all the hunting things, and then foraging is huge too. So having such diverse property, I can find pretty much anything that I'd like, except for morels. I haven't found those yet. Yeah, someday.
And in Minnesota, there are a lot of advantages to hunting on your own land as far as the licensing and game rules go. Plus, most people probably have hunted on public land.
I lost my mic. You can keep talking.
So if you have hunted on public land, you know that you're all ready to shoot that deer first thing in the morning. Sun comes up, he's right in front of you, and then somebody decides to walk in after shooting time begins and scares your deer off, and it's super frustrating. And to be able to get away from that is just a huge blessing.
Okay, technology is hard. How far are you from the city? Do you get nervous being so remote? So we're about 2 hours from Minneapolis, and I feel like that's a good buffer, but we're not so far away that we can't go down to see friends, family, and run errands or whatever. But our nearest town, I guess, is about 20-30 minutes. 20 minutes for Ryan, how he drives.
No, it's 30 minutes. The town that has a grocery store and a small hospital, I guess, and a hardware store.
Yeah, it's mostly
and auto parts store.
The auto parts store.
The auto parts store.
That one's important. But they're mostly just mom and pop shops. If we actually wanted to do like a Walmart or a Target, which I don't care to shop there much anyways, but that's probably an hour and a half from here. Hour and 15.
Hour and 15, yeah.
And as far as, are we nervous about being so remote? A little bit, but not really.
Yeah, I don't know that there's been a time where it's like, oh, I mean, it makes you think about what you're doing a little bit more, right? You think, if I get hurt here, I'm not getting fixed easily. So out of everything, I think I do think about what I'm doing just a hair more. I just take an extra second to think through what I'm doing.
Especially if one of us is gone.
For sure.
That's when it gets a little scary.
Yeah, because there's been things that have happened here already where it's like, oh, if I can get a hold of Katie, it'll be all right. You know, and we don't have cell reception out here, so we use radios. So as long as I have my radio on me and she's good about keeping hers on her,
That's the hardest part.
we can get a hold of each other. And, you know, especially when we know we're doing something that may require help, you know, we try to be cognizant of that and have the radios available then. And that takes a lot of it out of it, because between the two of us, there's not a lot of situations where we can't take care of it, I guess.
I agree.
And the other thought here is we do plan on aging in place here. I mean, we intend to be here when we're in our 80s, and that's going to bring special challenges. We are building those into the house we're going to build. But you can't build everything into your house, right? You still may need help or whatever. And so those are thoughts that we still haven't solved.
And I think that's kind of the strategy of being 2 hours from Minneapolis. By the time we're 80, that's what, 40 years from now? The surrounding towns will probably start growing into us by then, and there'll be more resources. So I think we'll be okay. Are you going to try to be completely self-sufficient on things you can produce for yourselves to eat? We're probably, 60-70% self-sufficient at this point.
Right.
We still buy our grains. I still get my raw milk from a farm down the road. And what else do we buy? Some beef, which will probably keep going down as we do more and more hunting, and a little bit of pork. That's about all we outsource at this point. So I do have goals of maybe growing my own grains. I think that'll be really cool, especially when I move this garden to our future homestead. This plot will be open, and I think that's where I'll experiment with growing with grains. But personally, I don't want to be 100% self-sufficient. I want to be self-sufficient enough where if something happened, we could cruise and be fine. But those kind of extras, like we won't perish if we don't have raw milk.
Right.
So I don't feel like we necessarily need a milk cow as much as I would love one. I do enjoy partnering with my neighboring community and building those relationships, and then bartering with them as well. So I'll trade eggs for raw milk, and I really look forward to those visits at the farm. So I guess to a point, we'll keep kind of pushing up a little bit, but I still like engaging with my neighboring farms and communities.
For me anyway, it's not just the self-sufficiency part. And, you know, I think a goal of like growing all your own food, you know, that's good. But at the end of the day, I think we have moved to the point where we're growing the food and preserving it so that, and eating it because it's the food we want to eat. So we don't go to the grocery store because we don't want to go to the grocery store. We don't go to the grocery store because we don't want to eat the food that's in the grocery store.
Yeah.
And so bartering for the raw milk, right? We want that milk.
Yeah, good quality food.
Yeah.
Okay, have you and Ryan been together for a long time, want kids, or living life? Yeah, we've been together for a long time. We started dating in 2005 when I went to college in Nebraska. I was a freshman and he was a fifth-year senior, and so we had 1 year together there at least. You hooked me in.
We met in the 80s.
Pretty much. So I don't know how many years that is from 2005. That's almost 20 years, 19 years? I believe 19 years this August probably,
It's been a bit.
whenever I went to school. And then we got married in 2008, so we've been married for 16 years, and so far so good. Still like each other.
Oh no, it keeps getting better.
Yeah, I agree. And as far as kids go, yeah, when we first got married, it was kind of like, maybe someday we'll see. And then just over the years, just never really got that fire under us.
I don't know. That's a deep question.
I know,
I
that
don't
is
want
a
to get
deep
into
question.
it too much.
Yeah.
But, no, we're not gonna have kids. We have some nieces and nephews. We have some family. We have some adopted, our friends' kids that are our adopted kids as far as we're concerned. So
Yeah, that's fun.
that is fun.
So we can kind of get out our little outlet and love them up and then send them home. What does your husband do, and what will the shop be for? That's everyone's burning question. We got a lot of those questions.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Everyone wants to know what I do?
Yeah. What you're doing over there?
Or what the shop's for?
Both.
Okay. Yeah, so I do industrial equipment. I do technical sales. I'm an engineer. I do enjoy that job. I don't intend to stop it. I really like doing it. And then the shop is mostly for storage. I am going to put an office out there, so I do find that I've worked remote since 2013. And, at the last place, started off working in the house and then moved my office out to the shop there. And I found that I was much more productive that way. Just getting myself away from the house makes a difference. So this can be the case here. I'm going to put my office out in the shop here and start working out there hopefully this fall. The rest of the shop, there's going to be a wood shop out there. And then that shop's going to be primarily for storage. At our last place, we had a lot of indoor storage. I hate keeping things outside. We have a lot of stuff outside right now that I do not want to have outside. And then there's the small shop that's next to the cabin here. And that will be my auto shop for the near term still.
Will Ryan be able to stop his full-time job to run your homestead eventually? We've been chatting about this kind of off and on a little bit.
I don't intend to quit my job. For me, the homestead is more of a retirement plan. We're building this place up so that we don't need a lot of money when I do get to retirement age. I'd like to retire at a decent age. I don't want to work, until I'm 70. But yeah, the plan with the place is to set it up now. We're spending the money now to make it require a lot less money to maintain, and we're trying to put the effort in now while we're still young and capable, so that it requires less effort when we're older. And then and we're putting money away like everybody should be, but it's the idea is we need less money when we're at that point. But no, work. I'm not going to quit.
Yeah, you enjoy it.
I do really enjoy my
It's
job.
busy sometimes though. Like it's hard for you to keep up on the homestead sometimes.
Absolutely. I wish it were a little slower, but at the same time, I don't wish it were slower. I don't know.
Yeah, it's good to have work. Do you see your families often? I feel like this is a yes and no question at the same time. I feel like we see people probably less frequently now that we're further out, but when we do see them, we see them for longer. So instead of just going down to Minneapolis for something for an hour or two and going home, we'll spend the night. Or if I'm running an errand, in Minneapolis, I'll tie it into seeing a friend.
My family's back in Nebraska, so we really only see them on major holidays for the most part. Katie's
That one's
family,
harder.
yeah, it is harder. It's a much bigger commitment. Katie's family, we're able to do a weekend, a day on a weekend, or actually her parents are semi-retired, I guess would be the way to say it. So they can come up on a weeknight and hang out if they want to.
And they have an RV, which is awesome, so they can bring it up and stay in their own space instead of our tiny cabin bunking up with the dogs.
Right. So yeah, that'd be for family. And then for friends, we have friends up here that we hang out with, and some friends back in the cities that we don't see as often anymore. For sure.
But it's been fun. We've had friends who have been going up to the North Shore and just called and been like, hey, I'm in your neck of the woods. Can we swing by? So it's been fun. Tell us more about the build, the shop, the house. Do you have plans you can share? How long do you plan on taking to build your new home?
So we actually have it all planned out, overly planned out. I have it all drawn out, where everything's going, future stuff all the way down to probably 5-10 years down the road. We have the house plans picked out. Obviously the shop is getting built now. But yeah, we have the well location. We have the septic permit already for the house, because we got the house permit and the shop permit all together, so that there wouldn't be any sort of hang up there. We haven't completely decided how we're going to execute it yet. We're trying not to take out a bunch of loans on the things. So do we build it in stages? Do we try and the parts we want to do ourselves, or the parts we're going to hire out? I'm still working, like we just talked about. I only have so much time, so
Yeah, it's been hard.
yeah, we're gonna have the concrete done. We'll probably have it framed out and dried in for us, so that we can just get that big chunk of work done. Plus, we like finishing out the inside. That's the part we like. I like doing the mechanical part. We like doing the finishes, the floors, the walls. Or not really the walls, but
Paint.
Yeah.
I love painting.
So
we remodeled our first two homes entirely, top to bottom, together, and we really enjoyed that. And we have the skills. The time's a little harder, but it will save a lot of money too. And thankfully, we have the cabin. It's cozy in there, but we can comfortably be in there for years if we need to.
Yeah, so I mean, a realistic plan might be to get the living, our immediate bedroom and some living spaces done, and then work on the rest of it over time. I'm not really sure. Don't like living in a construction zone either.
No,
So-
we've done that for way too many years. We're just kind of taking it day at a time, making it up as we go for the most part, but we do have the overarching plan.
Yeah, I mean,
At least.
between the house and the shop, and I totally geek out on the mechanicals, but outdoor wood boiler and the solar and geothermal and all that. I mean, we have that all planned out. Katie's garden's got a couple potential locations, orchard, greenhouse.
That'll be fun.
Now, that's all going to sit over probably a 5-acre chunk. If I had to guess, if we kind of had to draw a line around all of it.
And then the other thing that we've been thinking about throughout all of our new homestead build is how we can age in place. So we're going to do kind of single living, what do you call that? Main level living?
Single level living.
Single level living. Yep. Oh, another thing too is we're going to do a root cellar in the basement, and we're already thinking about how to create a dumbwaiter so I can bring canning jars up and down through that. It's called a dumbwaiter, right?
Yeah, it's called a dumbwaiter.
It's a weird word. So yeah, we're just trying to think through everything we can to enable us to live here for as long as possible.
Right, and so that root cellar is going to be pretty neat. I didn't really touch on that, but it's actually going to not be in the basement, but it's going to be a true buried root cellar, but you're going to be able to access it from the basement, so you don't have to go outside and open a door. And so
walk through and down.
Yep, walk through and down, and it should be pretty neat.
Yeah, can't wait. Will you be needing a water purification system at your new build? If so, what will you be going with? Yes, but I'm hoping our water will be better than what we have at the cabin.
Yeah, the water here has been interesting because we have the water in our cabin that I think Katie has done some clips about how we have an extensive purification system on it because the iron is so strong, there's so much sediment in it. Moldy house, we got that well fired up the other day because we're using it to water Katie's garden, and the water's awesome, and the two wells are only like 150 feet apart maybe.
It's like crystal clear, beautiful water.
So we're gonna try and figure out what they did different between the two of them and talk to some well people, but I did go to a town hall meeting here and was discussing water with some of the locals, and it is very hit or miss whether people had good water or not. So it's really, I guess what I'm getting at is we're gonna get the well put in and see what the water looks like and make some decisions from there. At any rate, there will be some sort of filtration system.
We're using water doctors here in the cabin, so we'll probably go with them again.
I would assume so. Yeah, they've been very good. We've actually had some issues with the equipment, and they've been very good about coming and working on it. And
been willing to come out here, which is huge.
Yeah.
When you build your home, will you have to move all of your gardens and chickens? So this is the question that has me up at night sometimes. Not really, but it's gonna be a big undertaking. So we're here at the cabin and we put in that new garden here and built the chicken coop, but yes, they are all going to have to move because our build site for our forever homestead is about half a mile back, and that's just not going to be very practical. As much as I would love to keep the chickens in the garden where they're at, especially the garden, I feel like it's doing so well, it's just not going to work. So yes, we will have to rebuild everything. I'm actually excited about the chicken coop because at our last homestead, Ryan and I built the poultry palace, which was just awesome. I miss it so much. This is pretty good, but the poultry palace was just amazing setup. And so we've already been thinking through designs on how to make poultry palace #2, which is going to be even better than poultry palace #1. So stay tuned for that build. That'll be a few years down the road, but that is coming. And then, yeah, we'll need to put in a whole new garden. And that one I'm dreading because the area where the clearing where I'm looking at, the soil's pretty crummy and it's very compacted because the dump trucks have been going through there, the logging trucks were through there, so we'll have to do some work to just make it usable for sure.
But we have set up some mechanisms here, I think, that you could plant like lower maintenance stuff. Like you could plant this garden to corn if you wanted to and leave it.
Yeah.
And like corn and
Squash.
potatoes or something like that and just let it go.
Yeah.
Anything that you don't have to get to very often.
And then maybe do a smaller garden up there on the needy plants.
Just make it as big as you want.
Yeah,
at
that's
that
true.
point.
It probably will happen. See, he's so good for me. Did you have to clean trails again after this winter? Not really.
No, we do have some down trees. I noticed we got 2 or 3 trees down already, but
Comparatively,
none of the winter problems that we had.
Yeah, that was months and months of cleanup where the amount that we have down, we could have it all cleaned up in a couple hours.
Yeah, so we've had to learn how to manage the trails in the spring. They get super soft and snotty, so we were driving on them, messing them up, and we've had to kind of stay off them. So we haven't completely figured all that out yet. We're generating some long-term plans for the trails. We want to make them to where they're usable all year long, and then we also, Katie really likes a groomed trail, I guess the way you put it, and Some of them are pretty rough where we can only get them on with a brush cutter right now, and they have to stay pretty tall. So,
well, for me, if they're able to be mowed short, there's less ticks. Right now, if I go walking, I'll come home with 8 ticks. They're awful. So that would be nice. And then smooth for cross-country skiing is always good too. But our main issue with the trails this year is we've had so much rain that most of them are underwater. So even though it's July now, we still haven't been able to mow them because we just can't even get the mower back there, and the grass is, waist high. And
yeah, there's probably a third of the trails we haven't even been on since the ground thawed.
Yeah, so that's been sad. So we have longer term plans too on just building up the trails, helping with the flooding, and so we'll get there. The project list is long.
And we have new trails we want to build.
We still need to finish that one we started back there.
Yep.
What church do you attend? So we love Eagle Brook, and we attend virtually. Unfortunately, there's no campuses nearby us. I do miss in-person services, but I'm thankful that at least we do have the virtual services. That's great. I know we have been talking maybe someday in the future setting up a viewing group. I know they have kind of local spots or small gatherings throughout the country, and it'd be really cool maybe to start one together. We'll see.
So there's an old church about 5 miles down the road that is abandoned and awesome, and I would love to, I don't know, before it gets too dilapidated where you can't save it, it'd be fun to get that and fix it up and hold remote services there. That'd be awesome.
Will you get cows, pigs, or goats one day? How about a milk cow? So
I sit uncomfortably, sit up, and shift subconsciously.
should I re-ask that one?
No. That was me reacting to the question.
So this is a question that I've been struggling with basically since we got to our first homestead.
Right.
So at our 5-acre homestead, the question was, or the answer was no, because I was working full-time at the hospital and commuting, 2 hours a day. And so just a garden and chickens were all I really had capacity for. And then when I quit my hospital job in 2021 and started working from home and I had more time, then I was like, ooh, maybe. But then we decided we were moving. And then I was like, no, now is not the time. It was hard enough moving the chickens over. I can't imagine moving livestock. And then since moving here, we're at our temporary location. So the last thing I want to do is build a barn down here and then have to rebuild it all. So I feel like we've kind of been on pause as far as livestock goes, but someday, maybe, once we're back there and settled and can actually build out some infrastructure. I know Ryan really does not want goats.
Not a fan of goats. I've had friends that had them growing up, and I'm also not a fan of milk anything. You never get to not milk that cow. If that cow needs milk, you got to milk it, right? You can't just decide, we have enough milk for now, we don't need that. So you're really tied to that.
That's probably the one big negative of how remote we are. We don't have any neighbors that can step in, for a day or two if we're going to go visit family. On our 5-acre homestead we did. It was great. We kind of had a next door neighbor that also had birds, and we could chore swap, and it was no big deal. But that is probably the hardest part to navigate being out here. Yeah. Like what to do if we're gonna leave. And so the chickens are easy, at least for a few days. The dogs, we either take them with us or we can board them. But yeah, once you start adding more livestock, it gets a little bit more tricky. I don't know, we'll see.
I wouldn't mind a couple beef cows. I mean, we talked about that when we bought the place too, because there are good places to run them here. It's just, we could realistically just shoot deer.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, oh, well, there's hunting.
But there's something about having your own beef cow too, so we'll see. It could be. That's the one that's on my list of potential.
One thing that really has sparked my interest is fiber animals, so maybe sheep.
Oh, sure.
I could see getting into that.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Sheep would be a good one, actually.
Yeah, they're so cute. And
get you an alpaca.
Yeah, well, I don't think I want an alpaca.
Okay.
I want
sheep
instead.
You have an opinion on that.
I do. Well, I thought I wanted alpaca, and then I've been reading some educational articles from other alpaca keepers, and it sounds like they're actually more finicky than you think and require a lot of care, and you got to have your vet handy and all the things. So I don't know. Well, we did it. I think that was all of our questions. Thank you.
We want a list of things you owe me for.
Yes. Well, that was super fun. I'm glad that Ryan was willing to do all the questions with me. It's always nice to have both of our perspectives there. And you might be noticing that a big chunk of the questions were missing, and that's because I thought it'd be best to split it into 2 different videos. So stay tuned for video number 2, which is more about general homesteading questions, giving you advice on how to get into homesteading, chicken questions, gardening questions. So stay tuned for that video. Make sure to subscribe if you aren't already so you can learn all about the homesteading nitty-gritty side of things, and I'll catch you on that video.